Her career was marrying millionaires. Literally. Peggy Upton Archer Hopkins Joyce Moner Eastern Meyer was a jazz-age femme fatale who was notorious for marrying millionaires. She was a gold digger. Many sources say that she is widely regarded as the original target of that term. Born a barber's daughter at a time when one's station in life or socioeconomic status was pretty much the same from cradle to grave, Peggy was determined to be more than just a barber's daughter from Berkeley, Virginia. She was determined to not have a dull and dreary life, and she didn't. In fact, after running away from home at the age of 16 with a vaudeville bicyclist of all things, she made such an exciting life for herself that the tabloid press found her irresistible. And what made her so interesting? The rich men who decided to have her in their beds. You see, Kim Kardashian is nothing new. A woman who had no discernible talent, but was desperate to be in the spotlight. A woman who couldn't get any attention from the press without being attached to a millionaire. Are we talking about Peggy Hopkins Joyce or Kim Kardashian at this point? Well, Peggy made her way into the lifestyle that she wanted by riding the coattails of some of the richest men of her time. Theater owner-operator Lee Shubert, film producer Irving Thalberg, automotive industry executive Walter Chrysler, multimillionaire lumberman J. Stanley Joyce, and comic actor, filmmaker, and composer Charlie Chaplin, just to name a few who were on her roster, and they all had deep pockets. Let's get into it. But first, if you like these videos about your favorite and most scandalous figures from yesteryear, subscribe and hit the notification bell so that you can know every time that I upload one of these videos. Now, on to why you are here. If you ask the question, what is true love? Depending on who you ask and his or her life experience, the answers will vary. Had you been able to ask Peggy Joyce Hopkins, she would likely have told you this quote of hers. True love was a heavy diamond bracelet, preferably one that arrived with its price tag intact. So, we know that she left home with that vaudeville bicyclist. Did he strike it big with his bicycle act and then lavish her with extravagant gifts? No. The story is that in 1910, the young couple were on their way to Denver, Colorado by train when Peggy encountered Everett Archibald Jr., a millionaire. She dropped that bicyclist and got herself a hero. Apparently, she lied about her age to her millionaire husband because Everett had the marriage annulled after 6 months when he discovered that Peggy was underage. Her story of why they divorced is different. She said that she wanted the divorce because life as a millionaire's wife was, quote, not at all what I thought it might be, and I was bored to death, end quote. I guess that I'll have to believe his side of the story, because she would go on to pursue several millionaires in her following years. After her divorce, Peggy attended the private Chevy Chase School for Girls in Washington, D.C. This is where she met her second husband, attorney Sherburne Philbrick Hopkins. They were married on September 1st, 1913, just 3 years after marrying her first husband. But this time, she was of legal age at 20. She stuck around for a while. Then, in 1917, Peggy left her second husband to pursue an entertainment career. She found work. Peggy was hired as a Ziegfeld showgirl who would also occasionally act. Most sources say that she had little to no real talent, but where her talent failed her, her opportunistic instincts more than compensated. Like most harlots, she had perfected the art of the adoring gaze and inviting smile, But unlike most harlots, the men who paid for her time were millionaires. And in 1919, she met multi-millionaire Chicago lumberman J. Stanley Joyce, and they made plans to marry. You might notice that I never mentioned her second divorce. That's because by the time that she was planning to marry Stanley Joyce, she hadn't gotten one. Her new fiancé, J. Stanley Joyce, paid for Peggy's divorce from Sherburne Hopkins. Their divorce was granted on January 21st, 1920. Then, on January 23rd, Peggy and J. Stanley Joyce were married. He became her third husband. Yes, just 2 days after her divorce was finalized. This marriage did not go at all the way that J. Stanley wanted it to go, because Peggy started with her obvious gold digging right away. On the couple's wedding night, Peggy locked herself in the bathroom of the couple's hotel room and refused to come out until he wrote her a check for $500,000. Being married to J. Stanley allowed her to be with her one true love: money. To a lesser degree, she also loved fame, but she knew that because of her lack of talent, that hers would likely not last for long. So she milked it for all that it was worth. Peggy Joyce never refused an interview, and often when she would receive tabloid reporters at her place of residence, she would receive them in her bedroom. That alone was scandalous enough for the 1920s. But not only would Peggy Joyce receive these male reporters in her bedroom, she had a habit of being interviewed while wearing see-through lingerie. Hey, when you can't sing or act or dance well, you have to give the entertainment reporters something entertaining to write about. And she did, thus turning what should have been her 15 minutes of fame into 15 years. She made no apologies for using her physical assets in order to gain access to luxury living. If I had to guess the words that she lived by, I'd guess, "You've got to use what you have to get what you want." She was once actually quoted as saying, "Better to be mercenary than miserable." Peggy Joyce lived her life as a woman on the prowl, and her hunting ground was New York City. New York City in the 1920s was the perfect spot for a free spirit between husbands or a newlywed on a honeymoon shopping spree. In the spring of 1920, the new Mrs. Stanley Joyce spent $1 million in a single week, buying $300,000 worth of pearls, a $65,000 Russian sable coat, and a $30,000 chinchilla fur coat. This extravagance sparked a story soon to be propelled by a scandalous divorce. In the first year of the marriage, she left Stanley Joyce for Parisian multimillionaire newspaper owner Henri Letellier. Then, in a show of pure audacity, she sued J. Stanley Joyce for a divorce and asked for $10,000 a month in alimony and attorney fees of $100,000. But J. Stanley Joyce wasn't going down without a fight. He may have willingly paid for her second divorce, but he wanted her to pay in every way for this third one from him. He countersued, claiming that she had married him only to defraud him of money. He also accused Peggy of having multiple adulterous affairs, and he accused her of being a bigamist. According to Stanley Joyce, Peggy was not divorced from her first husband before she married her second husband, thus making their union invalid, or so he hoped. And lastly, he accused her of having driven a United States Army lieutenant to suicide. J. Stanley Joyce's lawyer claimed that the lieutenant shot himself in a Turkish bath after going broke trying to keep Peggy happy. This is certainly on par with how a couple of Peggy's affairs ended, but I can't confirm this particular story because even though Stanley Joyce insisted that it was true, he never disclosed this lieutenant's name. He said out of respect for his family. Everything about this divorce was over the top and well publicized, and the press was not on Peggy's side. See this 1921 article from the San Pedro News Pilot, one of many of the newspapers that reported on these divorce proceedings. She is referred to as Peggy with a past and a wallet-devouring goat. It is revealed that J. Stanley had given Peggy Joyce a reported $1.4 million in jewelry, a $300,000 home in Miami, and multiple furs, cars, and other properties during their marriage. In the end, Stanley would not get what he wanted. Peggy was awarded $600,000 in the divorce settlement. She was also allowed to keep all of the jewelry she had acquired during the marriage, and she was awarded stock in J. Stanley Joyce's lumber company that gave her an annuity of $1,500 a month for life. Now, just for the record, this settlement wasn't enough to break J. Stanley Joyce. He was worth $40 million. I haven't done any of the inflation calculations in this story because I have rattled off so many dollar amounts already, but just to put things into perspective, let's look at the amounts Peggy was awarded in the divorce settlements, just the money. $600,000 lump sum and $1,500 a month from her stock annuity. That $600,000 in 1921 has the buying power of $9.3 million today in 2022. And that $1,500 a month translates to a measly $23,000 a month. For life. Chump change, right? Well, for J. Stanley Joyce, it actually was. He just wanted to make an example of his wife for playing him. But his $40 million net worth in 1921 translates to more than $500 million, $623 million in 2022. So he was definitely more than okay when the divorce was over. Kind of off the subject, but if you want to tell me what you would do with an extra $23,000 a month, I'd love to know. Put your answers in the comment section. This should be fun. After the divorce from J. Stanley Joyce, incorrect reports that Peggy had eloped with her rich French newspaperman Henri Letellier started to circulate. She later said that she didn't marry him because, quote, Frenchmen understand women too well. A girl should never marry a man who understands women, end quote. Well, that certainly says a lot. After this, her third divorce, Peggy Joyce declared that she would never marry again. And she didn't, for a while. She spent the next few years having romantic affairs with wealthy men. There was W. Averill Harriman, the politician, businessman, and son of a railroad baron. Then there was Prince Christopher of Greece and Denmark, the prince. Then there was Hiram Bloomingdale, the son of Lyman Bloomingdale, who was the founder of Bloomingdale's department store. Then there was Sayajirao Gaikwad III, the Maharaja of Baroda State, who was born into the royal Gaikwad family. And then there was Charlie Chaplin, millionaire film star who was the most famous celebrity of his time. She had an affair with him in between his first and second marriages. Charlie even drew inspiration from her life for his film called A Woman of Paris, which was partly based on stories that Peggy Joyce told him about her marriage to J. Stanley Joyce. Then there was Irving Thalberg, who was called the Boy Wonder in Hollywood because he was an expert producer who was great at selecting scripts and actors. Every one of her affairs made headlines, but her affair with Guillermo Errázuriz made the news because of what was going on outside of their bedroom time. Guillermo was a Chilean diplomat whose mother just happened to be the richest woman in Chile. 5 years before his affair with Peggy, his sister, Blanca, had killed her ex-husband because of a custody dispute over their son. Long story short, she got away with it. Though she was acquitted, her name was still a scandal by the time that Peggy was involved with Guillermo. But here came art again, imitating life. A silent film called The Woman and the Law was made about Blanca killing her child's father, and Peggy got a part in the movie. While Peggy was still seeing her French newspaper owner Henri, she started cheating on him with her Chilean lover, Guillermo. And when she broke things off with Guillermo to move on, sad headlines would follow the breakup. Headlines that read something like, Guillermo Errázuriz kills himself after being rejected by Peggy Hopkins Joyce. Yes, on May 1st, 1922, Guillermo shot himself in Peggy's hotel room and he died the following day. Peggy said that he did it because she turned down his marriage proposal. His family, in an effort to save face, said that he killed himself due to his financial troubles. But it seems that this time, she at least felt something for her former lover, because 3 days after his death, Peggy was hospitalized after accidentally overdosing on sleeping pills. She told a reporter that she loved Guillermo and she played with him. She didn't know why she did it. She didn't know why men ran after her, and she didn't mean to ruin their lives. Then, just 6 days later, one more life was affected, if not ruined because of her, when another Chilean diplomat she was also involved with tried to take his life. Reportedly, Lieutenant Riva Munt could not handle the fact that Peggy didn't want to be with him and that she really loved his fellow countryman and diplomat. So he attempted suicide by overdosing on Veronal, a barbiturate that was used as a sleep remedy. He was found clutching the newspaper article in which Peggy Joyce declared her love for Guillermo. All 3 of these suicides and attempt happened in a matter of 9 days. 2 years later, Peggy Hopkins Joyce married again, this time to Gösta Murner, a Swedish count. She told the press that this was her first time truly being in love, and he bragged that she gave up her career in order to be his wife. Well, I think that we know where this is going. Not even 2 months into their marriage, she left him to resume her career. The couple divorced 2 years later. After the divorce, she remained single, but she continued to have sexual affairs. On her 1930s roster was Walter Chrysler, automotive executive and namesake of American Chrysler Corporation. While the two were having their affair, Walter Chrysler was a married man, but that didn't stop him from giving her $2 million in jewelry, including a 134-carat diamond necklace, and 2 Isotta Fraschini's, Italian luxury cars that cost $45,000 apiece. Am I the only one wondering why he didn't just give her a top-of-the-line Chrysler? Peggy was a woman whose career was her love life. The most important aspect of her job, if you will, was attracting wealthy men. And there are requirements that come along with that. The main one for her was to be attractive. But somewhere around the age of 40, she committed the irremissible crime of aging. Peggy's 40 was a rough 40. She was no longer the slender fashion plate who had men risking everything, including their marriages and reputations, just for the chance to be with her. She gained a very noticeable amount of weight. She had become sloppy and unkempt. Adding to her unattractiveness were the facts that she now was an alcoholic and heavily in debt. Where had all of the gold diggers' dollars gone? The former good-looking, good-time girl was reduced to a laughingstock, a punchline for tasteless jokes made by people who thought she was getting what she deserved by being sentenced to live the rest of her days too broke and too fat and too ugly to attract another wealthy man who she could destroy. There were better things going on than this talentless broad. The former beauty who loved the spotlight almost as much as she loved money would now have to live with the fact that she was yesterday's news. She would find love again, just not with the caliber of men that she had in her younger, thinner, prettier days. Her next lover was Charles Vivian Jackson, a British astronomy professor who became her fiancé. She was 41 by this time. He was only 30, and when he proposed marriage to her with a sapphire ring that cost £6,500, he was already married. One of the engagement announcements read that he, quote, was expecting divorce proceedings against him, end quote. My. When the couple went to St. Moritz in 1937, he died in a sleighing accident. As far as I know, she wasn't a beneficiary on his life insurance policy, so I guess that it's safe to not suspect any foul play in his death. I guess. At some point, Peggy claimed that Charles was the only man who she had ever loved, but we've already heard that before. Well, Peggy's next fiancé didn't die. She made it down the aisle with him on December 3rd, 1945, her 5th marriage. This guy wasn't royalty or a big name in Hollywood either, so this marriage didn't make the headlines the way that many of her previous marriages and affairs had. His name was Anthony Easton, and he was a British engineer. Despite his not having a fancy career, their wedding made the headlines. Why? Because Peggy refused to include the word obey in her marriage vows. Well, at least she told the truth this time. There don't seem to be any records of a divorce in this 5th marriage for Peggy, but at some point the relationship ended. Whether it ended legally or not, I can't say. But I can say that Peggy Hopkins Joyce got married again, one more time, to one more man. And you know what they say, the 6 times the charm. Her 6th and final husband was Andrew C. Meyer. In a number of sources, he is referred to as a retired official of the Bankers Trust Company. That description was just a way of dressing up his real occupation. The truth is that he was just a bank teller. He met Peggy while he was working at the bank, and she was coming in to complete a transaction. By the time she met him, she was up in age, and he was probably the best catch that she could get. Who knows? Maybe this time she really did love him. It seems as though he may have really loved her, because Andrew stayed with Peggy until she died, when she lost her battle with throat cancer on June 12, 1957, aged 64. She is the patron saint of gold diggers, and these women need to thank her. Anna Nicole Smith, Marjorie Harvey, Kim Kardashian, Evelyn Lozada, and Kendu Isaacs. You owe a huge debt to Peggy for blazing a trail for you. That's Peggy Upton Archer Hopkins Joyce Murner Easton Meyer to you. Put some respect on her name. Dickie Wells is a name that many people don't know, though we know the names of a lot of people who have been connected to him romantically and some even criminally. Joan Crawford and Tallulah Bankhead are just a couple out of many women. He was, by most accounts, a gigolo for whom famous actresses would travel all the way from the West Coast to Harlem just for the chance to get in his bed. These tales from his exploits are interesting to hear, but nothing tangible for us to grasp. However, one lasting contribution of his that may be even more familiar than the stories of his string of lovers that many people can and still do enjoy is his creation called Chicken and Waffles. Jet magazine had a lot to say about him in 3 separate issues in the 1950s, and I'll share all of that with you in this video. This is the story of a cotton club tap dancer turned professional gigolo turned restaurateur who lived the fast life and in the end paid the ultimate price. Let's get into it. Richard Dicky Wells, known as Mr. Harlem, was an extremely gifted tap dancer, nightclub owner, and notorious gigolo and playboy. His career began in 1920. He was a self-taught tap dancer when he began dancing in the Wells, Mordecai, and Taylor trio. They started out on street corners, dancing for nickels and pennies. Not long after, the trio began performing in upscale clubs like Small's Paradise and the Cotton Club. When most black men who were earning money at all were earning $25 to $35 a week, Dickie Wells was making $500 per week performing at the Cotton Club. That has the buying power of over $6,900 per week in today's 2021 money. And it was at the Cotton Club where reportedly Dickie discovered that his female admirers were interested in more than just his dancing, if you catch my drift. For that reason, the end of the 1920s looked very different from the beginning of that decade for Dickie. He started off in the 20s, earning most of his fortune by tap dancing. By the end of the decade, a lot of very rich women wanted Dickie's time and were willing to pay for it, and he was just as willing to take their money. The talk of what he was capable of doing in the bedroom was very well known from Harlem all the way to Los Angeles. Women, most of them rich and white, from all across the country were pouring into Harlem to meet their not-so-Latin lover, who was often mistaken for being Cuban due to his having lighter skin and wavier hair than most black men have. His roster of alleged lovers included, but certainly was not limited to, Joan Crawford, Ava Gardner, Tallulah Bankhead, Lana Turner, and a not-so-well-known singer named Jean Parks who cannot be left out of his story. These women, and many others, showered Dickie Wells with expensive presents, first-class trips, and money. Most of them seemed to have had the understanding that Dickie was out on loan to them. They had to hire him for his time, and their leases were short-term. Lana Turner, on the other hand, seemed to hang on to the delusion that she could have Dickie all to herself. She started to demand so much of his time that he had to think of a way to get rid of her. His solution was to give her a more tempting distraction. And that came in the form of Dickie's good friend, heavyweight boxing champ, Joe Louis. So, if you have ever heard about their love affair and wonder how it started, apparently this is how. Dickie Wells didn't want Lana Turner hounding him for his time, so he passed the blonde bombshell around to his friend. By the time the 1930s started, Dickie wanted more out of life than to just be a playboy. He wanted to own a restaurant in Harlem. He was, by this time, no stranger to receiving money from women, and reputedly, one of his rich clients, if you will, gave him the money that he needed to start his very own supper club. He named his spot Dickie Wells. His popularity was through the roof, so it's no surprise that his restaurant was a hit. By the early 1930s, it became one of the most popular hangouts on the Harlem night scene. And it was here, in Harlem, not Roscoe's Chicken and Waffles in Los Angeles, where chicken and waffles first became a meal. The way that it was described as coming about sounds pretty logical. Dickie's club catered to people who were out late at night until early in the morning, so many of his customers didn't know if they wanted to eat dinner or if they wanted to eat breakfast. So Dickie's idea, why not give them both? A hot plate of chicken and waffles. Sometimes it was served with coffee, other times a shot of bourbon. In the 1930s, this seemed like an odd combination, but in a short while, everyone in Harlem wanted chicken and waffles in their bellies or on their menus. After Dickie Wells did it, Ethel Waters put chicken and waffles on the menu when she opened her restaurant, and another Wells in Harlem named J.T. Wells opened his restaurant in 1938 and became very well known for his chicken and waffles until his restaurant closed in 1982. Herb Hudson, who is the founder of Roscoe's Chicken and Waffles in Los Angeles, is a Harlem native. He is responsible for bringing the dish to the West Coast and popularizing it. But let's be very clear, it is 1930s Harlem gigolo Dicky Wells who gets the credit for creating the food combination. And was this gigolo also a mama's boy? According to notorious gangster Bumpy Johnson's widow, Mamie Johnson, Dickie used some of his gigolo wealth to buy a home for his mother, a brownstone in an elite neighborhood in Harlem, and he took up residence in the basement apartment of his mother's home and lived there until he died. Speaking of his death, it's probably no surprise to hear that a playboy who lived his life in the fast lane died relatively young. At the age of 41, Dickie Wells died of a drug overdose. Which brings me back to the singer who I mentioned at the beginning of this story. Remember Jean Parks? Well, there is a reason why Jet magazine called her a hard luck singer on the cover of this issue from March 5th, 1953. She desperately wanted to be a famous singer, and just when she was on the verge of realizing her dream, time after time, one thing or another would stop her. First, she got arrested, quote, as a dope addict, end quote, as Jet describes it. Then years later, she contracted a skin ailment that would mar her face permanently. And now, with Dickie's death, was another stumbling block. Why? Because when he died from a drug overdose, he died in her apartment. That's bad enough, but when you couple that with the fact that at the time of Dickie's death, he was under investigation in the case of a United States diplomat whose daughter became a prostitute, you can imagine that the scandal was just too much for Miss Jean Parks to bear. Reportedly, when the news of Dickie's death reached Hollywood, Ava Gardner cried about it for days, and Tallulah Bankhead fainted when she heard it. Billie Holiday was on the program to sing at his funeral, but she was too devastated to follow through with it. Reportedly, over 40,000 people attended his funeral, and a great deal of them were crying women. Dickie Wells' name would appear in Jet magazine 2 more times after he died, and both times it was because of actress and professional party girl Tallulah Bankhead. In this 1951 issue of Jet, there's just a mention that Dickie Wells' name has been brought up and will be further discussed in the Tallulah Bankhead trial. Here was the deal. Tallulah was suing her maid for stealing $15,000, but the maid basically turned all eyes on Tallulah when her defense was that Tallulah authorized her to spend that $15,000 on Tallulah's expenses, which included cocaine, whiskey, and sex. Well, with Dickie's name being brought into the fold, it was because Tallulah was known to buy 2 of those 3 things from him. And just for the record, she wasn't known to buy whiskey from Dickie. Got it? I'm sure that you do. That issue of Jet has this amazing photo of Dickie, Tallulah, and Billie Holiday. I can only imagine how wild those parties must have been. Then finally, this 1952 issue of Jet magazine, based on reporting from the Tallulah trial, states that Dickie Wells sold cocaine to Tallulah Bankhead. It's a short write-up, so I'll read it to you. The article is titled, "Dickie Wells Sold Cocaine to Tallulah." That title certainly gets right to the point. The article reads, Mrs. Eveline Cronin, former secretary maid to Tallulah Bankhead, told a New York court that Harlem playboy Dicky Wells sold cocaine to the famed actress at her Plymouth Theater dressing room in New York. On trial for hiking checks given her by Miss Bankhead, the maid testified that the late Wells was a very good friend of Miss Bankhead and brought in the cocaine, for which Miss Bankhead paid $50, more as charity than as payment for the contraband. Wells, she said, was awfully broke and near bankruptcy, and we all loved him. End quote. We all loved him, she said. I think that is evidenced by all of the crying women who attended his funeral. They must have really loved Dickie's chicken and waffles. And how sad is it to think of this man who was earning more money than most black men, or really anyone could have dreamed of making in the 1920s, to being gifted huge sums of money, enough to start a supper club, and a successful one at that. All of that to being nearly bankrupt at the end of his short life. For so many, the name Dorothy Dandridge is synonymous with Carmen Jones. For her, that Carmen Jones role was the role of a lifetime, and the man who gave her the role, she was in the relationship of a lifetime with him, or so she thought. Dorothy had been in a horrible marriage with tap dancing superstar Harold Nicholas. She put up with his cheating, neglect, and abandonment of her and her daughter, Carolyn, until she just couldn't take it anymore. After Harold had already skipped out on his family, Dorothy finally filed for divorce. She was left with no one in the world except for her daughter, who, due to the barbaric times in medical history, was labeled as mentally retarded. The world was a cold, lonely place, and because of her financial situation, it was becoming a desperate place too. Dorothy hadn't been able to book the type of work that a performer of her caliber deserved, and her ex-husband, Harold Nicholas, flat out refused to financially support his daughter. So you can imagine that when she landed the role of Carmen Jones in Otto Preminger's musical of the same name, Dorothy must have felt like things were finally looking up, turning around in her favor. And to top it all off, she was in love with the man who was making it happen for her, Otto Preminger. But was he in love with her? He was quite probably in lust for her. Understandably so. She was a beautiful woman. But did she expect too much from this relationship? Well, long story short, they had a whirlwind 4-year love affair that started while working on Carmen Jones. The film earned Dorothy her first and only Oscar nomination ever. She must have felt like Otto was some type of good luck charm. So she listened to him. He gave her excellent career advice for a white woman. But Dorothy Dandridge wasn't white. She was a woman of color making films in a Jim Crow era Hollywood. So Otto's tips for her that included only accept lead roles did far more damage to her career than help. Only accept lead roles. Think about it. Black actresses at that time were lucky to get work as supporting cast members. Times were changing, but not that quickly. Otto Preminger thought that everyone else saw Dorothy as he saw her. Well, maybe he wasn't that naive. He knew that everyone didn't see Dorothy exactly as he did, like his wife. He must have known that she didn't like Dorothy as much as he did. In all fairness, Dorothy probably knew that too. But that's not what made her relationship with Otto end. Dorothy Dandridge came up in that golden age of Hollywood, a time when the studios owned their actors and treated them like property. And Dorothy was treated no differently from other actresses in that regard. So, when Dorothy Dandridge and Otto Preminger were expecting a child from their affair, her studio put the kibosh on the child itself and forced Dorothy to have an abortion. Dorothy finally realized that she was never going to be able to climb up the ladder and make the move from mistress to wife. She wanted more than Otto was in a position to give her, so she moved on. Enter the rebound guy who she married, Jack Denison. Let's get into it. When Dorothy Dandridge was forced to abort Otto Preminger's baby in 1955, she not only terminated the pregnancy, she terminated her relationship with him as well. And while she was performing at the Riviera in Las Vegas, she met Jack Denison and started a relationship with him. He let Dorothy know that he held interest in multiple casinos in Vegas. However, the truth was that he was just a maitre d' at the Riviera. But that didn't stop him from lying about it. He did everything that he could think of to keep up his act. He told Dorothy that he had a lot of money saved up and put away. He told Jet magazine that he had been the vice president of the Riviera. Yeah, the vice president of the busboys, maybe. Jack knew that he was the rebound guy, and he took full advantage of that. He knew that Dorothy's emotional state was not the best after her breakup with Otto, so he pushed his way into her life, posing as a sympathetic listening ear, a shoulder to cry on, a man to sweep her off of her feet and give her the life that she wanted. What she wanted was to be a wife, and all of the trappings that were supposed to come with that title: protection, provision, a steady home life, and the option to work rather than work being a necessity. One of the ways that Jack Denison tried to gently push into Dorothy's life seems like a sweet romantic gesture, until you know the rest of the story. He sent flowers to her every single day while she was performing at the Riviera. This went on for an extended period of time, so I can imagine that if Dorothy wasn't swept off of her feet at this gesture alone, that she was at the very least flattered. She couldn't help but take notice of his wooing attempt. That was a rather expensive one. It likely led her to believe that he had a lot of money to burn. And, well, nothing could have been further from the truth. Maybe it was just the daily flowers that were delivered to her, or a combination of things. But whatever the reason or reasons, Dorothy went ahead and entered into a romantic relationship with Jack. Whether it was that she wanted privacy regarding her personal life, or she was doubting this relationship, Dorothy kept very quiet about it. She didn't talk to the press about Jack Denison, but as soon as he got the green light to speak on it, he did. In this February 1959 article of Jet magazine, she said, quote, "You know, you just can't talk about love like this. I don't want to talk about it because marriage is the logical conclusion of love, and I haven't made up my mind about marriage yet." End quote. By contrast, this is what Jack told Jet magazine, quote, "I knew she was the greatest actress and the most beautiful woman in the world when I saw her in Carmen Jones in 1954. Then, in November of that year, she came to the Riviera in Las Vegas, where I was vice president. I was completely smitten when I saw her nightclub act and fell in love with her instantaneously the first time I talked to her. But it took me 6 months to convince her that I loved her and wasn't just another stage door Johnny. I knew this was the woman I wanted to marry. I was married once when I was 21, but there was no understanding. Maybe because the girl wasn't Dorothy. I don't think of Dorothy as a Negro, but as a woman I love very much. I only hope if she marries me, her race will accept me. Not that I believe it would make any difference to Dorothy, because she's a wonderful woman, but one of the reasons I bought this club was so that if she ever said yes, we would not have to worry for our security or what other people thought about us. You see, I am a man, and I would definitely want her to quit her career if we married. I believe that the value she would receive in having a husband and devoted lover would more than compensate for what she would lose by giving up show business." End quote. Well, not only did he like to talk a lot, he liked to lie a lot. Let's unpack the lies to Jet Magazine. He said he had been the vice president of the Riviera when Dorothy came to work there, and we know that the highest position he ever held was maitre d'. He also claimed that he bought his nightclub so that he could provide Dorothy with financial security. The truth was that Dorothy sank a lot of her money into his club, 6 figures, which was a lot in the 1950s. He also said that he would want her to quit her career if they got married because his value to her as a husband would outweigh her compensation from show business. Now, I can't say that his wanting her to quit work was a lie, but I can say that that's not at all how their relationship worked out in the end. Dorothy Dandridge was the main breadwinner. When it gets down to it, she was the only breadwinner in their marriage. Let me know. Do you think that Jack Denison married Dorothy Dandridge only for her money and fame? And let's get a discussion going. Now, let's back things up a bit and talk about their wedding day. They were married in the ancient Greek rite ceremony at Los Angeles Sophia Orthodox Cathedral, and 200 people attended. Among those guests was Nat King Cole, who brought his wife as his +1. He was the only major celebrity in attendance. Outside of Nat King Cole's presence, everything about this wedding was plain and ordinary. The kind of wedding that you would expect for an everyday working class couple, not a movie star and club owner who has several profitable investments. Her dress, his suit, the 30-minute ceremony, the reception, or lack thereof, and the honeymoon, all very ordinary. After the wedding, there was no limousine waiting to whisk the couple away down the road of eternal wedded bliss. No, Jack drove them to their reception that wasn't a reception at all. There was no party for their guests, just a dinner for 2 at a restaurant on their way to the airport. But at least they got to have champagne. Not so fun fact about the wedding: Dorothy was attended by her good friend, Jerry Branton, who stated that Dorothy had to sedate herself to get through the wedding, and she fell asleep at the dinner afterwards. Their wedding should have been the first sign to Dorothy that she would not be living a life of luxury with her second husband. Now, let's get to this honeymoon, because the marriage literally goes downhill from this point. Perhaps the term honeymoon should be viewed as loosely as wedding reception in this story. In actuality, the honeymoon was more of a working vacation for Dorothy Dandridge. The destination was New York City. After their arrival, Dorothy would have to get herself ready for the movie premiere of Porgy and Bess, a film that was directed by the man whose child she had to abort before she started seeing the man who was now her husband. But like a professional, Dorothy did her work at the premiere. She smiled, posed for photos, and signed autographs. Then came the end to all of the illusions and lies. Jack finally told Dorothy the truth about who he really was and what he really had, now that she was bound to him legally. Jack used their honeymoon as the perfect opportunity to tell Dorothy that he was, in fact, broke. And despite all of the money she had just invested into his new restaurant, he would go under if she didn't give him more money. And that he needed her to start performing at his restaurant as soon as possible. Talk about a short honeymoon phase. Is it just me, or does knowing this make his smiles in their wedding photos seem evil? Just a brief glance at his billboard versus the insides of his matchbooks gives you an idea of how little he knew about business. His billboard says that his restaurant is the finest eating establishment in the world. Yet his matchbook tells people to come as you are. That's not what you do for fine dining. So, all of the talk to Jet magazine about not wanting Dorothy to work because he would provide for her was just lies. This guy didn't specialize in ribs, he specialized in fibs. Marriage was supposed to provide financial and emotional stability for Dorothy, but this man wanted to take her money and force her to work in order to cover his debts. And she did it. She started singing at his dinner club, and unfortunately for Dorothy, her name wasn't a draw. That move ended up hurting her ego, her pocketbook, and her reputation in the entertainment industry. Jack's restaurant ended up going under less than a year after they got married. He had to sell the restaurant that bore his name, which I'm sure came as a surprise to nobody. All of that talk that he gave to Jet magazine in 1959 about Dorothy only having to work if she wanted to because he was a provider went out of the door by 1960. When he talked to Jet about having to sell his restaurant, this clown said that his next move was going to be selling ballpoint pens that light up when used. Around this time, Dorothy's dependence on pills and alcohol increased. Imagine that. The debt that he created had given her the worst wedding gift, a husband who needed financial support. On top of being a liar and broke, this loser had the nerve to be abusive to Dorothy, verbally and physically, according to her petition for divorce, which she finally filed in 1962. And it was finally in 1962, after Dorothy filed for divorce, that Jack came clean to the press about his inability to financially provide for his wife. He told Jet magazine, quote, "After all, the average family can live on $700, $800, or $900 a month, but our living standard was in the $2,000 a month bracket. I couldn't make enough here to tell my wife she didn't have to work. The old man has got to be a breadwinner in a marriage." End quote. In her divorce documents, Dorothy accused Jack of extreme cruelty, claiming he struck her on many occasions. During her marriage to him, she started to drink heavily and abuse prescription drugs. Dorothy's marriage to Jack was the beginning of the end of everything that was good to her. In that short marriage, she began to lose her physical health, her mental health, her money, and even her fame. With every month that passed, she became less and less successful in her career because her only standing gig was singing at his third-rate supper club. Hollywood wasn't taking Dorothy Dandridge seriously anymore. It's too bad that she didn't have the foresight to file for divorce sooner, because being with Jack got her deeper into debt as each month went by. It was great that she filed for divorce, but by the time that she did, the irreparable damage had already been done to her finances. Jack's out-of-control spending and bad investments started a snowball from which Dorothy would never be able to recover. I won't go over all of the dollar figures in this sad story, but to put the amount of money she had lost for being attached to this loser into perspective, consider this. When she married him in 1959, she was earning $250,000 a year. That has a buying power of $2.4 million in 2022. She had put a great deal of her savings into his restaurant, which quickly failed. That was a six-figure investment for her that yielded absolutely no return. Now, this part isn't entirely on Jack, but his total lack of income certainly didn't help. The IRS claimed that Dorothy owed back taxes. Then, after falling too far behind on her mortgage payments, her home was in foreclosure. Less than a year after her divorce was finalized, Dorothy Dandridge had to file for bankruptcy. But that wasn't the end. The very next day after bankruptcy court, Helen Calhoun, the woman who had been taking care of Dorothy's special needs child from her first marriage, informed her that her daughter would be returned to her. Dorothy had just missed 2 consecutive payments for her daughter's care. Harlem, Dorothy's daughter, who was now 19 and ruled a physical danger to herself and others, would be dropped off at Dorothy's house. This left Miss Dandridge, who had previously vowed that her daughter would never be put in a state institution, to have to break that vow. She was out of money and out of options, and Harold Nicholas, who had never paid a dime for his daughter's care from day one, didn't have a change of heart by the time that this desperate situation came upon them. Dorothy Dandridge's bad choices in men made for a dark ending to what should have been a brilliant life the whole way through. This little homewrecker, Ellen Love, was not a depiction of a real woman, but rather a good representation of the many women who Harry Selfridge kept as mistresses while he was married with children. You probably know about the turn-of-the-century retail magnate Harry Gordon Selfridge when I covered his amazing rags to riches to rags story here on this channel. I told you about his very public romantic affair with Gaby Deslys. Here's a refresher for you. Harry has this plate glass window in his office that's called the signature window. If you're noteworthy, Harry invites you to his office so that you can sign it with his diamond-pointed stylus. The names of some of the world's most famous and interesting people are on this window. It has the autographs of Rudolph Valentino, Amelia Earhart, Prince George, Duke of Kent, Ethel Barrymore, Drew Barrymore's great-aunt, the Dolly sisters, Vivian Lee, Isadora Duncan, Will Rogers, Anna Pavlova, Prince George of Russia, Eleanor Glenn, and Gaby Deslys. You know that those last 2 names are a couple of his mistresses. But Harry slept with at least 3 of those people whose names I just rattled off. I bet that his wife wanted to smash that window to pieces. After all, part of its purpose, whether intentional or not, is to memorialize his sexual trysts. And a lot of the women who signed were merely famous women who didn't cause any trouble in Harry's marriage. Gaby Deslys signed the window, but she did cause some trouble in his marriage. Let me tell you about her. Gaby is a French showgirl. She's a dancer and just the kind of babe that Harry Selfridge likes. Beautiful, loose, and popular. He loves famous women. He loves being in the in crowd. Now, Gaby has a reputation for a lot of things. She's the toast of London during World War I, and it was this known thing that she had a fee that men paid to take her out on dates. And it's not going to take long for Harry to pay more than all of those desperate men combined. So, it's some work day in 1912. After a hard day at Selfridge's, Harry heads down to the Palace Theater on Shaftesbury Avenue. The live show he's watching is Mademoiselle Chic. The star of the show is Gaby. Most of her reviews say that she doesn't have a lot of talent, but Harry thinks that she's great. In this particular show, she strips down to her underwear. Harry is blown away. Damn what those critics think. This girl has got it. As a matter of fact, he's so convinced by her nearly nude act that he takes it upon himself to buy this young lady some clothes. Yes, Harry invites Gaby to Selfridge's to give her a guided tour and allow her to pick out some items that she can wear. Because Harry is, just a good guy who wants to help. And he continues to help Gaby. For the next few years, he's lavishing her with expensive gifts. And I'm not talking about designer shoes and handbags and clothes. Well, not just those things. Harry is going all out. Rubies, sapphires, emeralds, pearls, diamonds, whatever she wants from Harry, she gets. Meanwhile, Rose is at home, turning a blind eye, but there's only so many times that she can turn her head till she can't help but see. Harry is obsessed with Gaby, and he's being very public and very sloppy about his open affection towards her. He's out with Gaby in public, spending nights at her shows, leaving Rose and their 4 children without a husband and father for days at a time. You know that Rose has to be embarrassed. But then, instead of coming to his senses and trying to make things right with his family, Harry does the total opposite when he not leases but purchases a stately home in Kensington for Gaby. He pays £50,000 for it. Let's be clear, Harry is not just buying her a house. He's putting Gaby in high style. Kensington is one of the most affluent neighborhoods in London. He is making a statement and damn near marking his territory with his purchase. £50,000 in 1912 is like $7.7 million today. That's a lot more than the trinkets that men of means typically give their mistresses. Gaby spends her time in the public eye, making it clear that her affection is for sale. And Harry, who loves to win, is proud to be the highest bidder. Not only does Harry buy her this exquisite home, he furnishes it completely, and all of the furnishings come from Selfridge's. And his struts have his company logo, so again, I can't state enough just how public and sloppy this whole situation was. His trucks were pulling into Gaby's driveway at a steady pace to keep loading up her house with all of the finest wares from his 150 departments at Selfridge's. The neighbors know. The whole city knows. Harry is embarrassing his family, but he's too blinded by his love for Gaby to see it or to care about it. While Harry is making these decisions all on his own, Gaby is no angel in the situation. It's Harry's decision to cheat, but she also knows that he's a married man with children. But as long as he's paying her way, she doesn't care. She's happy to be his lover. She's happy about the attention that they're getting, even if it makes her look like a woman who lacks character. And for Harry, the money is pouring in left, right, and center from Selfridge's. So he just wants to be the good guy and share with the woman he loves. His generosity knows no bounds. Neither does Rose's frustration and embarrassment. This husband of hers is spending the next few years of their married life sending Selfridge's delivery trucks to Gaby's house almost daily. Those trucks are loaded with the best that his store has to offer. Delicacies from all over the world, huge quantities of the finest wines and champagnes and flowers. He loves to send Gaby enormous bouquets of roses. Roses. His wife's name is Rose. How can he not stop and think about the mother of his children as he's carrying on like this? And guess what else? On the rare days that he's not having his finest merchandise delivered to Gaby, she's coming into the store. Well, because she needs to visit her sweet Harry and she needs to shop. She picks out the best and most expensive items she sees and buys them on credit. And she charges all of this stuff to Harry's account. Month after month, he smiles and foots the bill. Kind of makes you wonder how he's going to end up with no money at the end of this story, right? His actions are nothing short of disgraceful. But here's the biggest stunt he pulls for Gaby, and if this doesn't scream obsession, I don't know what does. Gaby complains to Harry, "Honey, my garden is a mass of tangled weeds. and that makes me so sad." Perhaps she only had time to be a hoe and not use one. But she doesn't need to lift one finger because Harry is a good guy who cares about women. You can say that he is a rake who doesn't know how to use one. But he has enough money to hire all of the rakes and hoes that it will require to get rid of those weeds for his sweet, precious Gaby. But he goes beyond that. After Gaby made that complaint to Harry, she wakes up the next morning, looks out of her window to see that not only are all of the weeds gone, but spring is in full blossom in her yard. Her lawn is covered in an array of spring flowers, daffodils, pansies, azaleas, and tulips, you name it. If the flower exists, it's there in her garden. Harry created a springtime miracle that happened in the dead of the night thanks to his floral department and the overtime that he paid them. So, one more point for Big Daddy Harry, I guess. But when it comes to Gaby and the rest of his mistresses, he is playing the short game, and he's playing to lose. His public affairs and the visible trail of Selfridge's branded delivery trucks outside of Gaby's home are proof to his rivals that Harry's personal indiscretions are making his place of business bad for the city. So now Harrods and Whiteleys are taking subtle shots at Dirty Harry, advertising their own stores as respectable, without saying, because who wants to spend their money with a dirty adulterer? Crikey. And poor Rose, who at this time is facing immense social pressure and scrutiny. Victorian and Edwardian ideals of marriage were rigid, placing the burden of maintaining a family's dignity on the woman, even if her husband was the one who strayed. You know how it goes. She must not be taking care of him if he needed to look somewhere else for affection. There's not much for her to do but suffer in quiet dignity. Even divorce is likely not an option because divorcing a man as powerful as Harry is going to cause yet another scandal. And that's something that Rose simply cannot handle. Harry's self-centeredness is shining through. When you think of the fact that part of Rose's appeal to him was her high society family name, and that with each affair he has, he's just dragging her family name and his own through the mud. Harry's inability to control his impulses is eroding their marriage. But right now, all that he can see is Gaby. Well, that's until he sees Gabrielle Ray. Yep, he's already got his eyes on his next tart. But before I get to her, just in case you think that Gaby deserves some karmic retribution for her part in Harry's extramarital affair, here's what happened to her. Not so fast, former self. I'll tell you about that in this video. Now that clip that you just saw only covers Gaby's relationship with Harry because that video was about him. But today, I want to tell you more about her. Mainly another relationship that she was in prior to her relationship with Harry. A relationship that should have made Harry think twice before getting involved with her. Harry Selfridge was only one in a long list of men she used to get what she wanted. Men who had to pay her to wine and dine her, just to be in her company. She set her price, and those men would pay it. This is the story of a French showgirl who went from stripping down to her underwear on stage to owning $1 million worth of jewels. A woman so beautiful that a king lost his throne over her. So expensive that even a multimillionaire like Harry Gordon Selfridge couldn't afford her. Some might say that Gaby thought too highly of herself, that she was vain, and that could be a fair assessment, as it seems like her vanity is what ultimately led to her death. But before we get there, let me tell you about her scandalous life. Let's rewind to 1909. Gaby Deslys is already famous in Paris. She's worked her way up from being a gaiety girl, a mere chorus girl. You can see her name here in small print near the bottom of this 1906 ad for the new Aladdin in the Daily Paragraph, a London paper. But Gaby's name was not meant to be in small print, and she was definitely not meant to be at the bottom of anything in her eyes. Just 3 years after this pitiful little advertisement, it's not just her name in the papers, but her photos, sometimes taking up full pages. She's performing at the Moulin Rouge, stripping down on stage wearing outrageous feathered headdresses that weigh up to 30 pounds and charging men 50 pounds just to have dinner with her. That's over $8,000 in today's money for dinner. And that's all you get, gentlemen. Just to give you an idea of how huge Gaby's appeal is at this time, let me show you this little story from the Muncie Evening Press. Evanston Bars Girls Gaby Club. Mothers put ban on pledges to emulate smile and garb of actress. It was just a group of teenage girls who vowed to wear their hair like Gaby with bangs, dress like her, pose like her. When the leader of this fan club told her mother that the rest of the girls in the club were coming over for their first meeting at her house, the mother told her absolutely not and put a stop to the foolish celebrity worship at once. How about instead of your little party, we burn all of your Gaby Deslys stuff, okay? And that's just what they did, according to this story. If only King Manuel II's mommy could stop his Gaby obsession the way that these mothers did with their daughters, he might not lose his throne. So, it seems like there's a plan for this young king to court an English princess. And in September of 1909, the talk around Europe is that he's on his way to see her. But it turns out that there is no romance brewing with an English princess. However, closer to home, actually in Portugal, a few months later, there's an engagement announcement. The bride-to-be is the daughter of the former minister to Portugal. Her name is Miss Yvonne Townsend, and the country of Portugal is rejoicing because soon they'll have a new queen. But one night, King Manuel II of Portugal walks into the theater and sees Gaby Deslys instead. He doesn't plan this encounter. Like the most exciting stuff in life, it just happens. The king is young, he's handsome, and he's about to make the biggest mistake of his life. The 19-year-old king sees Gaby perform and he's immediately obsessed. They meet after the show, and just like that, they're having an affair that's about to change the course of European history. Now, you need to understand something about King Manuel. This isn't just some rich playboy. He's the ruler of an entire country, a country that is, at this time in our story, nearly bankrupt. His people are struggling. And what does struggling look like in 1909 Portugal? It looks like 3 out of 4 people who can't read or write. It looks like a country that has declared bankruptcy twice in the past 17 years. It looks like peasants leaving their farms and flooding into Lisbon and Porto, hoping to find factory work, only to end up crammed into slums on the outskirts of the city with no running water and no hope. Portugal's economy is running at just 40% of what the average Western European country is producing. While Britain and France are building railroads and factories, Portugal is falling further and further behind. The working class is putting in 12 to 14-hour days for wages that literally cannot keep up with the price of bread. And Manuel's own father, King Carlos, he had been so hated for the way that he handled the country's finances that he and Manuel's older brother were assassinated in the streets of Lisbon just the year before, shot dead in broad daylight. That's how Manuel became king in the first place, because his father and brother were murdered by people who were sick and tired of watching the royal family live in luxury while they starved. So here's young Manuel, 19 years old, ruling over a country where people are rioting in the streets, where Republican revolutionaries are gaining support every single day, where his own military is starting to turn against the crown, against him. And what is this boy king doing? He's showering a French showgirl with jewelry. He is so utterly in awe of Gaby Deslys that his dead father and brother escape his mind. He doesn't care about the consequences of so openly lavishing her in presents. He gives Gaby a pearl necklace worth $70,000. That's over $2 million in today's money. Then he gives her more jewelry, diamonds, emeralds. He's emptying the royal treasury while his people can barely afford bread. He lodges her in a suite inside the royal palace at Lisbon. The royal palace. This woman is living under the same roof where kings have ruled for centuries. He's not hiding her away like some shameful secret, the way that a dignified king would hide a plaything with no royal blood, who can never rule by his side. No, he parades her around in public, showing off his French prize, while his country burns. And those jewels I mentioned, he gives her even more, $500,000 worth. He drapes her in diamonds and pearls like she's the queen and not just some actress he picked up in Paris during a fling the winter before. The newspapers say the Johnnies in London went wild over her. Well, now, the boy king of Portugal has gone wild over her too. Wild enough to bring her back to Lisbon with him. Wild enough to risk everything. Well, he's a public figure to say the least, and so is she. So, the Portuguese newspapers start reporting on this affair. The public, the poor people in his kingdom, are quite understandably furious. Their king is giving away their country's wealth, what little of it exists, to a French titty dancer while they're living in abject poverty. Damn those peasants. I like what Gaby's got, and she's got a lot. That's how they felt. He felt. The scandal becomes so massive that it practically kicks off the Republican Revolution of 1910. What is the Republican Revolution of 1910, you say? It's essentially the end of King Manuel's ass. A 1910 edition of the Centralia Fireside Guard broke down the situation in a pretty neat bow. Quote, "The cause of the revolt is the outcome of a clash between the clericals and anti-clericals. The population of Portugal consists of about 300 aristocrats and 5 million common people, and for many years the aristocrats have been bleeding the people for every cent above their meager living expenses. Many of the poorer people were said to be actually starving. In the face of all of this, King Manuel II has been supporting the actress Mademoiselle Gaby Deslys in royal splendor, giving her jewels and sporting about the country with her. This was known over the country, and the people were oppressed by many other troubles, so the revolt followed. It is said that despite the fact that taxes were monstrous, that Portugal was debt-ridden and had more poverty than any other country on the globe, King Manuel II maintained 7 fine palaces." End quote. So while you can see that Portugal already had its own issues, this relationship with Gaby Deslys pours gasoline on this fire and helps to bring down the king. His romance with Gaby is the final straw that breaks the camel's back. On October 5th, 1910, Republican warships in the harbor open fire on the royal palace. The guns are trained on the building and shells are exploding overhead. Manuel and his mother, Queen Amélie, flee to the cellars. They hide in the underground vaults while the palace is being bombarded above them. At nightfall, the commander of a Brazilian warship sends word to the king, "Your life is in danger. I can get you out." The Republican commanders agree to let it happen. They don't want to kill him. They just want him gone. When the Brazilian officers arrive at the palace, they find Manuel trying to comfort his mother. She's in tears. At first, the king refuses to leave, but his mother's tears finally went out. So Manuel puts on his full uniform. He holds his head high, and he walks to the quay, where he boards the ship that will take him away from Portugal forever. King Manuel is overthrown and exiled. He has lost everything: his throne, his country, his crown. He's 20 years old. He will never set foot in his country again. And Gaby? She keeps the jewelry and moves on to the next conquest. She told King Manuel something like, "Oh, jeepers, babe, I really hate that for you. I mean, it really sucks to be you. Oh, well, I had fun. I guess I'll see you later. Unless I see you first." And she does see him again, one last humiliating time for the king. After his exile, Manuel becomes a frequent visitor to London. He travels incognito, staying at prominent hotels with the Marquis de Soverall, the former Portuguese minister, acting as his guardian. His mother, the queen, furnishes the money for these trips. He's literally like a child getting allowance. Manuel and the Marquis spend their nights in music halls and comedy theaters, sitting in inconspicuous stalls. Neither of them wears any insignia of rank. They're trying to hide. And they do a good job of it. They're rarely recognized. Then one night, in January 1911, while watching a performance of The Quaker Girl, Manuel spots Gaby Deslys in the audience. This is the first time he's seen her since losing his throne. If he'd had any sense or dignity, he would have ducked out of the theater and hid. But he rushes over and takes an empty seat next to the woman who wrecked his life. His chit-chat goes from a warm conversation to Manuel slipping back into his old habit, or at least trying to. He's pressing his suit, begging her to return to him. And guess what? Gaby doesn't give a flying f***. She is totally indifferent to his advances. She coldly keeps her eyes forward, watching the play, barely listening as the dethroned ruler pours out his love for her. While Manuel is still talking earnestly, Gaby rises from her seat. She adjusts her wraps, and she leaves the theater with a gesture making it clear that she does not want him to follow her. People who know the little chic dancer say that she told Manuel directly, since he is without home, rank, or money, she has lost all interest in him. Manuel immediately returns to Wood Norton, the home of the Duke of Orleans, where he and his mother are guests. And that was the last time that he saw the love of his life. Gaby moves on to her next man, but that is how she lives her life. It's what everyone else expects of her. Perhaps if the king had had a little more world experience and a little less time latched onto his mother, he would have known how to handle a woman like Gaby. Now, you've already heard about her affair with Harry and how he dethrones her for the next showgirl. One thing that Harry and the king have in common is a super close relationship with their mothers. But unlike the king, Harry has been around the block more than enough times when it comes to women. He understands Gaby, and honestly, they kind of deserve each other. They both understood each other and the nature of their transactional relationship very well. Harry's a hound dog. He's in it for the sex. Gaby's a mercenary. She's in it for the money. Neither one is in it for love. So when the relationship runs its course, Harry slowly closes his wallet and Gaby quickly closes her legs. Gaby quickly moves on to other wealthy men. The papers lead people to believe that one of those other men is her dancing partner, Harry Piltzer. News stories even go as far as to say that Gaby will marry him, but she won't. He's gay. By 1919, Gaby has accumulated a fortune. Her jewelry collection alone is worth over $1 million, thanks in huge part to King Manuel. She owns a lavish estate in the south of France, decorated with paintings by Botticelli and a gilded hand-carved bed. That was a gift from Harry Selfridge, one that he got some use out of too. But it's in the fall of 1919 that she contracts Spanish influenza. It leads to a throat infection. Then her doctors discover a tumor. They tell her that she needs surgery, actually multiple surgeries. But there's a catch. A catch that wouldn't be a catch to you or me or any person who wanted to be cured. To properly treat the infection, they need to make a cut on the surface of her neck. And Gaby says no. She refuses. She will not let them scar her beautiful neck. Her beauty is everything. It's how she got the king. It's how she got Harry. It's how she got everything. So she insists that they operate without cutting the outside. The surgeons do their best. She undergoes several operations. Now, there's a saying that beauty is pain, but this is taking it too far. Gaby undergoes 2 of those surgeries with no anesthetic. But it's not enough to save her. As a result, on February 11th, 1920, Gaby Deslys died from complications of the throat infection. She was only 38 years old. And you see how she was remembered. The caption says it all. Popularly blamed for the downfall of King Manuel of Portugal. That was her legacy. And you think a person dies, and that's it. End of story. But not for Gaby. There's just one more thing. She left her entire $1 million jewelry collection, including those diamonds and pearls from the King of Portugal, to the poor of Marseille. Do you think that she should have left the jewels to him, meaning the king or his people, the poverty-stricken people of Portugal? Let me know in the comments. I'm curious about your thoughts on that. And in case you want to know what happened to the young exiled king, well, when he celebrated his 30th birthday, he was living a quiet life in England as a chicken farmer. Quite the fall from grace for a European king. It's probably not surprising to see that a woman who lived for beauty, money, and fame burned out rather young. If her priorities had been different, she might have gotten that surgery that would have left a scar on her neck and lived to a ripe old age. They say that beauty fades, but Gaby chose death instead. Are you a content creator who feels like you're doing all the right things, but your channel still isn't growing the way you want it to? Are you making content, but not making money? Or maybe you're a business owner who knows you need to be on YouTube, but you have no idea where to start? If that's you, I'd love to help. I have a membership called Hot Mess University, where I teach creators how to actually build sustainable income on YouTube. Not just views, not just subscribers, but real revenue. The link is in the description box. And if you're serious, like serious, and you want to work with me one-on-one, send me an email. My email address is also in the description box. I work with content creators, and I'm also very interested in working with businesses who are ready to use YouTube strategically. Now let me tell you what's possible when you actually implement what I teach. Keisha Irvin is my YouTube colleague and friend. Her channel is Color Me Pink. When she first talked to me about her channel in 2022, she was making $2,500 a month on YouTube, and that's a really good side hustle income. We worked together at the end of January, and her very next check, February, was a little over $7,000. And here's the key. She implemented 90% of what I told her right away. She didn't sit on it. She did the work. And now Keisha consistently earns between $9,000 to $12,000 on YouTube every single month. I actually interviewed her about her journey in my membership, and I uploaded that interview to my YouTube tips channel. I'll leave a link to that interview on the end screen so you can hear it straight from her and see her actual earnings. She opened up everything in that interview. So if you're still breathing, and I know you are because you're watching, it's not too late to do your thing. And if YouTube is your thing, consider checking out Hot Mess University or email me so that we can see if we're a good fit for one-on-one work. I look forward to working with you, and I'll see you on the next video. Gaby Deslys isn't the only woman in history whose death had something to do with surgery. While her cause of death was not getting a life-saving surgery, Great Depression era Doris Duke's choices to go crazy with elective surgeries, plastic surgery, facelifts in particular, helped to contribute to her death. I published a video about her roller coaster of a life that you can see here. My sources for this story are on the screen. New York Times Archives, Men, Marriage, and Me by Peggy Hopkins Joyce, Genie.com, San Pedro News Pilot Archive 1921, Top Photo UK, San Francisco Call Archive 1921, Alcatron.com, and the Pittsburgh Press Archive 1921. Harlem World Magazine, Jazz Lives, Autobiography of a People, 3 Centuries of African American History Told by Those Who Lived It, edited by Herb Boyd, and Jet Magazine. History Collection, Vanguard of Hollywood, Jet Magazine Archives 1959, Jet Magazine Archives 1960, Jet Magazine Archives 1962, and Ebony Magazine Archives 1966.